It is Saturday and it is freezing cold up here in Canada, which means we have a late season iteration of our weekly NFL Pick'ems. But as always, before we get into the video, I wanted to take a second to ask you to please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. Really helps out. If you're a fan of the NFL, you'll love this channel, which releases multiple NFL-related videos every Thursday and Saturday, all season long. Now, let's get into the video. So, we're going to start here just with a recap of how we did last week in our Pick'ems, and we did all right. 8-5 is all right, but again, this is not against the spread. This is a straight-up picks, and so I like to do a bit better than 8-5. I didn't go too heavy in my upsets this past week. I had the Packers beating the Lions and the Chargers beating the Chiefs. Both of those were really close games decided by basically last-second field goals, but they both went against me, so I finished 8-5. Vegas finished 10-3, and I'm like 8 games back of Vegas, so you know what? I made the decision. I usually fail when I do this, but I'm being a little more loose this week, picking a bit more upsets than I normally do, and it is a week that I think there are a number of games that could result in upsets, so I still like my upsets, but I acknowledge maybe a bit more than I would normally pick in any given week. And so let's get into our matchups, and we're going to start out here with the Washington Commanders visiting the New Orleans Saints. This one, you have the Commanders, who are definitely on the upswing compared to the Saints, who are on the opposite way, the downswing. I don't believe that Derek Carr is going to be playing in this game, so we have what we had earlier in the season from the New Orleans Saints when Spencer Rattler, whoever the hell was that quarterback, there's still no Taysom Hill for the rest of the season, so they can't even use him in this offense, and so I don't expect much out of the Saints. While they might be at home, this iteration of the Saints without Derek Carr did not show anything early on in the season. I don't expect that to change, and with the Washington Commanders coming off a bye week, they should have extra time to prepare and should easily be able to win this football game. Moving on to our next contest, we have the Cincinnati Bengals visiting the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans have not been a very good football team all year, and while they do have probably somewhat of a similar record to the Cincinnati Bengals, primarily because the Bengals have just underperformed and barely lost a bunch of these games, the caliber of these two teams is wildly different. Yeah, it's likely that both these teams are going to miss the playoffs, but at least for the Bengals, there still is that teeny tiny bit of hope that Cincinnati can win out. Some things will break their way in terms of losses for the Chargers and the Broncos, and the Bengals can squeak into the playoffs. I don't think it's going to happen, but it could, and so the Bengals still have something to play for, and if they do have something to play for, I think they should be able to take down the Titans pretty easily. I got them winning this one on the road. Next matchup, this one's actually a pretty difficult matchup to call. You have the Miami Dolphins visiting the Houston Texans. The Texans are at home and favored in this game. They do have a better record than the Miami Dolphins, but the Texans have been frankly disappointing all year. I came into this season talking about, I thought the Texans would regress a little bit and maybe not even make the playoffs. Now, I acknowledge they are going to make the playoffs, but that has more to do with the fact that the teams in the AFC South, like the Jaguars and the Colts that I expected to be better, are being just terrible this year. And so even while the Texans have been a significantly worse iteration of their team in 2024, they are still the best team in the AFC South, so they should be able to make the playoffs based on winning the division. But I would not be surprised if every other team in the AFC that makes the playoffs has a better record than the Texans when all is said and done. On the flip side, the Dolphins don't have a great record. I believe they're 6-7 at this point in the season, but they are a significantly better team when they have Tua Tagovailoa as their quarterback. They were one of the worst teams in the NFL early on this season when they didn't have Tua, but since they've gotten him back, they've been quite an effective offense. They've beaten some good teams. They've been in competition against some less good teams. And so I understand the Texans being favored in this one because they are a decent team. They are at home. I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to take the Dolphins to win this one because they've just seemed like a much better team from what I've seen from them since Tua's been back. I don't totally trust this Houston Texans organization, and even though they are coming off a bye week, which is a significant boon for the Texans, having more time to prepare, I still think the Dolphins will be able to pull this one out and move back to 500 on the season. After that, we have the Kansas City Chiefs visiting the Cleveland Browns, and the Kansas City Chiefs just keep getting away with these wins. This past week, they beat on a last-second field goal, or maybe not last second, but like near the end of the game field goal from the Chiefs that was literally doinked in. It was actually last second. Sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, they literally doinked it in. How many ways can the Kansas City Chiefs win football games? I do not know. And comparatively, the Cleveland Browns are basically on the opposite end of the spectrum. They have dealt with a ton of stuff this year. They still have a talented team. Like, this team has beat the Steelers and the Ravens this season even though they have one of the worst records in the NFL. It just goes to show that this team is competitive with Jameis Winston at quarterback, and when they show up, they can absolutely win football games. Is this going to be a week that they show up, though? I'm going to say yes. I'm taking the Browns to win this game. And it's not just because I think the Browns have the ability to beat the Chiefs, but because the Chiefs' luck has got to run out. Like, they have looked not good against a lot of not good teams and barely squeaked out wins from the luckiest of circumstances. I just don't imagine that's going to continue. And so even if the Browns don't play up to their best self, I think they could beat the Chiefs. And if they do play to their best self, I think they can also beat the Chiefs. So given it's in Cleveland, I'm going to take the Browns to win this one. After that, we have a matchup of NFC basement dwellers, the Dallas Cowboys visiting the Carolina Panthers. And, I mean, we at least expected this from the Panthers this year. We didn't expect much from that team, but the Cowboys had so many more expectations. Now, I understand that they lost Dak Prescott, and that hurts, and I don't think they would be as good as last year without Dak Prescott no matter what, but, like, they were pretty bad even before Dak left, and they've been almost, like, better since Dak's left. Like, I'm not saying the team has been better, but, like, everyone outside of the quarterback has seemingly been better for the Cowboys since Dak has left. So maybe there's some locker room cancer there. Maybe it is just like Micah Parsons matters that much to the defense. I don't know, but going on the road to Carolina, we actually have the Panthers favored in this game, which to many of us might seem, crazy. The Panthers are favored against the Cowboys. Like, the Cowboys are still a near 500 football team. I believe they're 6-7. Like, why are the Panthers favored even though they're on a losing streak? And I think it's because while they are on a losing streak, some of those losses have been very, very close games. Like, they were in the competition. They were in the game against both the Philadelphia Eagles last week and a few weeks before that against the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, this Panthers team has been much improved. They had every opportunity, but for a Xavier Leggett drop catch in the end zone, like, they would have been up on the Philadelphia Eagles with very little time left in that game. That would have been a massive upset. And so at home against the Dallas Cowboys, I understand why Vegas has the Carolina Panthers winning. And I know I've told you I picked a lot of upsets this week, so you might think I'm taking the Panthers, but yeah, you'd be right. I am taking the Panthers. And it's not an upset. I kind of screwed that, delivery up. But either way, I get it. If you wanted to pick an upset, the Cowboys over the Panthers might make a lot of sense, but I don't want to pick that upset. I think the Carolina Panthers can take down the Cowboys. They've been much improved. So is Bryce Young, and I think they can pull this game off. Now, moving on to our next matchup, we have the New York Jets visiting the Jacksonville Jaguars, a matchup of AFC bottom dwellers. And I don't want to talk about this game that much. Vegas has the Jets favored in this one, but I mean, Vegas has kind of been all over the Jets all season. There's been some crazy lines that I have not understood with the Jets. I think only reason I'm not even further behind Vegas is because they have picked the Jets in some games that the Jets have no business winning, and so I've won on that. In this one, going against the Jacksonville Jaguars, I understand actually why the Jets are favored, but the Jaguars have actually not looked bad in recent weeks. Like, they have played some tough competition like the Philadelphia Eagles, like the Minnesota Vikings, and in the past month plus, they haven't lost any of those games by more than one possession with the exception of the drubbing they took at the hand of the Lions. The Jaguars are at home. Their win differences against good teams has been pretty good as of late. And so against a bad team like the Jets, where they're just in utter turmoil, I'm taking the Jaguars to pull off the upset and win this football game. After that, we got the Baltimore Ravens visiting the New York Giants. And you know what? I'm not even going to talk about this for long at all. The Ravens are winning this football game. I mean, the Giants, who knows who's at quarterback? Who really cares? The Ravens have had some tough matchups where they lost to the Deshaun Watson-led Cleveland Browns earlier in the season. Actually, I think Jameis Winston was in there by then. Either way, still lost to the Browns, and they lost to the Las Vegas Raiders. And the Ravens had those matchups, and, maybe they could lose to the New York Giants under similar circumstances, but I just don't see it happening. The Ravens take this one. If they lose to the Giants, I mean, Ravens fans, you just got to give up on the season because there ain't no way you're winning 4 in a row come playoffs. After that, we got a matchup of the baby and daddy horses. We got the Colts visiting the Broncos. The Big Daddy horses are at home with Denver, with the Denver Broncos, and they're the favored team. The Broncos have been a much improved unit this year. Bo Nix seems absolutely legit. Their defense has been dominant, and while the Colts are still looking to fight their way into a playoff spot, especially because the Houston Texans have kind of been giving them a chance to take that division. Now, I don't think it's a big chance, but a chance. And so the Colts definitely want to win this game, but I just don't see how Anthony Richardson and this Colts offense puts up points on the Denver Broncos. And so I'm taking the Broncos to win. I absolutely see how Bo Nix puts up points on the Colts. I don't see how Anthony Richardson puts up points on the Broncos. And so at home, I'm taking the Broncos to win this one. After that, we got the Patriots visiting the Cardinals. And the Cardinals were one of the good stories of this NFL season. They were 6-4. All their losses has been to like top tier teams. Like they were looking like a really good unit. And then they hit their bye week and they've lost 3 straight since. 2 of them to their divisional rivals in the Seattle Seahawks. And they are on the outside looking in of the playoff picture. They are down there with the 49ers at the bottom of the NFC West. Now, the 49ers did lose on Thursday Night Football, so the Cardinals are technically half a game ahead after that loss. But still, with the Rams being at 8-6 and the Seahawks being at 8-5, and the Seahawks holding the tiebreak against the Cardinals, given they beat them twice, the Cardinals need wins, and they need wins now if they are going to want to make it to the playoffs in 2024. Now, do I think they're going to make the playoffs at this point in the season? No, I don't, which is sad because I do think this team had the best chance of any team to continue the streak of a team going from last place in a division to first place in a division. It's looking like that's not going to happen. It's really like the Cardinals. Who else? I think it's the Cardinals, the Chargers, but that's not going to happen with how good the Chiefs have been, and the Commanders, but I think the Eagles are going to hold there. So sad that that's going to come to an end, but maybe not quite, because I do have the Cardinals winning this one. This is primarily just because they're at home. They're going against the New England Patriots, who are not that good a team. I don't think the Cardinals are going to win the division, but they'll at least get a win and move back to 500 on Sunday this week. After that, we got a matchup of teams that are in playoff fights in the NFC and AFC respectively. You have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers visiting the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, both these teams can take a loss, maybe 2, throughout the remainder of the season and still make the playoffs because there's now, 7 seeds, and you probably only need to be 10-7, maybe even 9-8 in Tampa Bay Buccaneers circumstances because of how bad the NFC South is. But by all of these teams, I mean both these teams do need to win at least half, if not 3 of their final 4 games if they're going to make the playoffs. So this is a big matchup for both teams. The Chargers are favored, and understandably so, again, because they're at home. It just makes sense. But without Ladd McConkey this past week against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Los Angeles Chargers did not look that good offensively. I was unimpressed by this team. And yes, maybe Ladd McConkey will be back this week, but I don't know how healthy he's going to be. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, on the flip side, are a much healthier unit. Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen with Bucky Irving, but they still have running backs in Sean Tucker and Rachaad White to back up on. They still have receivers like Mike Evans and Cade Otton, and Baker Mayfield can just throw the ball more like he did earlier this season before Bucky Irving came on. I absolutely think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can take this one. I'm picking them to win it on the road. It's going to be a tough matchup. This one could go either way. It's a bit of a coin flip in my mind, but I'm going to trust the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because what I've seen from them is a lot more consistent than what I've seen from the Chargers on the season. And after that, we have the Battle of Pennsylvania. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers visiting the Philadelphia Eagles. And the state of Pennsylvania is going to be just as fired up as they were with Trump 2024. I mean, I'm not going to get into politics. All jokes aside, we thought going into the election that it was going to be who won. Pennsylvania won the whole thing. So Pennsylvania was divided there, and they're going to be divided here with their 2 major cities going head-to-head in a football match. These matches don't happen very often. Once every 4 years, and maybe every other year if they end up in the same spot in the division at the right time. So this is a big matchup. It doesn't happen often, and this is a rivalry game that doesn't have the maybe traditional rivalry with how often they play, but guess what? Steelers and Eagles do not like each other, and this is going to be a really fun contest. The Eagles are favored, again, being at home, having that 11-2 record, it just makes sense. But I'm not going to pick the Eagles. I'm picking the Pittsburgh Steelers in this one. This just seems like a grind game that the Steelers will end up coming out on top in. The Eagles have been very impressive lately, but at the same time, their passing attack has not been what you want. Look at Jalen Hurts' passing statistics, not his fantasy statistics, his passing statistics, and tell me that he's been an effective quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, because you can't. I think the Steelers do have a defense that is able to key in on what the other team wants to do to you, and we all know what the Eagles want to do to the Steelers is run with Saquon Barkley. I think Mike Tomlin will find a way to slow Saquon Barkley down, and if the Eagles can't get their passing attack going, I think the Steelers can win this one in a grind game, which is it's just the most quintessential Steelers football thing you can imagine. Just pulling out these grimy games against a team that you're rivals with, that's just Mike Tomlin football. Steelers win this one. And now we have our final non-primetime game of Week 15. We have the Buffalo Bills visiting the Detroit Lions. And if you asked me last week who would I take in this football game, I probably would have taken the Buffalo Bills. But asking me today, I'm taking the Detroit Lions. And it's for two reasons. The first is that the Detroit Lions have been dealing with massive injuries on the defensive side of the football. But the Detroit Lions were still able to beat a team like the Green Bay Packers last year in spite of those injuries. They are getting healthier given everyone is week to week. And they have a mini bye given they played on Thursday this past week. So I think the Lions will be in much better position to win this football game against the Bills. And on the flip side, the Buffalo Bills lost 44-42 to the Los Angeles Rams this past week. What that tells me is that the Buffalo Bills defense is beatable through the air, which is how Matthew Stafford was able to beat him. Yes, I understand Kyron Williams had a great game and scored a couple touchdowns on the ground. But at the end of the day, this really was the Los Angeles Rams passing attack that tore apart the Buffalo Bills. Jared Goff can absolutely do the same. And I mean, frankly, so can the running backs in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And so even if the Bills are able to put up a ton of points, even if Josh Allen goes off, the Rams just showed that you can beat the Bills in a shootout like that. The Lions are absolutely a team that can play in a shootout effectively with Jared Goff and the rest of that offense. So at home, I'm taking the Lions to win this one, and the Bills going to be dropping to 10-4 and basically out of the number one seed in the AFC race. And so now we move on to our primetime games. We start with Sunday Night Football. We got the Green Bay Packers visiting the Seattle Seahawks. This became one of the best rivalries of the 2010s. We have the Hail Mary. We had some absolutely phenomenal playoff games between these two teams. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks were the bane of the Green Bay Packers' existence for a number of years. Those Aaron Rodgers Packers teams were so good, but it always seemed like the Seattle Seahawks got in the way of them being a dynasty and winning more than just the one Super Bowl. But I mean, again, the Seahawks only won the one Super Bowl too, so what can you say there? And the 49ers, another team that was in that rivalry in the NFC in the mid-2010s. But these two teams always have had good matchups against each other. I'm excited to see what happens here on Sunday Night Football between them because both of these teams are going to be hungry for wins. The Green Bay Packers are in a good position because they still have a 2-game lead on whoever's not in the wild card spot. So they should be fine. Like, again, they should be fine. They should be able to make the playoffs. On the flip side, the Seattle Seahawks, if they lose this game, they fall to a tie with the Los Angeles Rams for the lead in the NFC West. That would be a big drop for the Seahawks. And again, if the Commanders keep winning down the stretch and, the Packers win this game and then some, the Seahawks need to win the NFC West or they don't make the playoffs. I think both these teams are very hungry for wins in this football game. I would say the Seattle Seahawks are a little bit hungrier, and they're at home, and they are favored. Or sorry, they're not favored. The Packers are favored, and so you might think I'm taking the Seahawks, but now I'm taking the Packers. I just think the Packers are going to be able to pull off this game. I don't totally trust Geno Smith. I think the Packers are well-rounded enough. They can slow down this Seattle Seahawks offense. And while, yes, Seattle has been much better in recent weeks, especially beating a lot of divisional opponents, which is good for them. It's helped them move up to the number one seed in the NFC West, at least thus far. I don't think they're going to be able to beat a team like the Green Bay Packers, who I believe just is a different level from the rest of the NFC West. They're beating NFC West teams. Now you're going up against NFC North teams. Let's see how you do there. And now we're moving to the first of two Monday Night Football games. And again, I've ranted about this earlier this season. I hate double Monday Night Football games. I want to watch just one game, but I'm not going to go into a massive rant here. Either way, let's talk about the NFC North matchup between the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings. These two teams played a few weeks ago, and it was a very close football game. In fact, the Bears in 3 straight weeks had very close football games against the Vikings, the Packers, and the Lions in no particular order before the 49ers absolutely destroyed them. And, maybe we all thought the 49ers might be back, but then we watched Thursday Night Football and we were like, no, the 49ers ain't back. They ain't back at all. The Bears just kind of suck and are good against divisional opponents. But, again, this is a divisional opponent that the Bears showed a lot of fight at when they were at home against the Vikings a couple weeks ago. So will the Bears be able to finally get over the hump and win one of these divisional matchups? No. I have the Vikings winning this one. Again, the Vikings finally got back into a dominant win column this past week, beating the Atlanta Falcons 42-21. The Bears got blown out by the 49ers. These teams are moving in opposite directions. The Vikings are at home this time, and even on the road, the Vikings were able to still beat the Bears, even though it was a close game. So, given all that, I'm taking the Vikings to win this one, and the Bears just keep on plummeting. But hey, Bears fans, you're going to get a good pick, and you got a decent team. You just got to get the coaching and front office in place, and you'll be fine. And now for our final game of Week 15 of the NFL season, we have the Atlanta Falcons visiting the Las Vegas Raiders. The Atlanta Falcons have been in absolute nosedive mode. They were easily up in the NFC South for a while, and now they're well behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They still could come back in the division, if only because the fact that they have the tiebreak against the Buccaneers, given they beat them twice this season already. But they're going to need to start winning games. Though, that being said, there ain't nobody better to win games against than the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are on their third-string quarterback. This team is not trying to go anywhere fast in this NFL season. They're likely going to get one of, if not the number one pick in the NFL draft, which they need to get a quarterback in-house. And I mean, oh God, if Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers actually had a quarterback throwing to them, whoo, they might actually be something good. And I say that because I have both of them in fantasy. They're all right for me, but it scares me with potentially Desmond Ridder as the Raiders quarterback for the rest of the season. Either way, the Raiders are at home and the Falcons are nosediving. So I did consider taking the Las Vegas Raiders here, but I went with the Falcons. Again, I'm just taking the talent here. Even if the Falcons just decide we're going to run it every single play with Bijan Robinson and then switch it up sometimes with Tyler Algier, I think that would be enough to beat this Raiders team, at least the current iteration of the Raiders. And the Raiders want to lose games. There is easily a mandate for them to lose games from ownership and the front office to get that number one pick, to bring Shedeur Sanders or maybe Cam Ward into the Raiders organization. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Falcons to pull this one out and get back in the win column. And so here is the list of my Week 15 picks. Again, we have a number of upsets here. If you look, you can see how much it changes. 5 upsets. We have the Rams over the 49ers, which we've already got right. And then beyond that, we have the Dolphins beating the Texans, the Browns beating the Chiefs. We have the Steelers beating the Eagles. And finally, we have the Buccaneers beating the Chargers. You can see where Vegas is at here. They do have a pretty big lead on me, but if I can get a number of these, maybe 4 out of 5 right this week, all of a sudden, I'm right back in it against Vegas. I'd love to go 5 for 5. I'm already 1 for 1, so let's see what we're able to do. Either way, guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Remember, if you did, leave a like and comment down below. Help us out, help us grow. I really hope you enjoy Week 15 of the NFL season, and I will see you all again on Thursday for our power ranking of Week 16. Final reminder, we do stream as well over on Twitch, D-Row Sports over on Twitch. Go find us there if you want to join us for watching Sunday night and Monday Night Football. I hope to see you there, and if I don't, again, Thursday. Either way, peace!